Welcome to the Business Mechanics Show. I'm your host, Vaughn Sigmund, as always, co-founder of Results Driven Leadership, where companies come to increase their performance. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to share with you my thoughts and ideas on one of the most impactful issues affecting today's businesses. That sounds like a lot, but I feel really compelled to share this with you today. I think it's really important. It's a situation that seems to be getting worse and worse and not better. And it's coming at a time when the fix is needed more than ever. I call this, as I'm starting to see more and more of this term, I love it, the phenomenon of the accidental manager. The accidental manager. Been around for a long time. In fact, I was an accidental manager. Lots of them out there. And today I want to talk about how untrained leadership can damage companies, how these accidental managers without the proper leadership direction, training, and knowledge are having a negative effect on your business or on your success within your career. I'm going to today share the startling truth about accidental managers, what creates the situation, what signs to look for, and how to begin down the path of fixing the problem. Remember, as leaders, we are paid to overcome problems, not live with them. And to start, let me make sure I press my motto onto you. No matter what business, we're in the people business. And if you're not reaching the levels of success you want for your company or your team or yourself, please listen up. In today's business environment, which is getting more difficult every day, effective leadership, as I talk about this every single week. I talk about this every single week. And you loyal listeners know that. And you keep coming back for more. And God bless you for doing that. But effective leadership is more crucial today than ever. However, this trend that I'm talking about of the accidental manager is emerging to be more and more of a problem, a larger issue than I've ever seen it before. And I've been doing this a long time. And these accidental managers, 100% of them mean they want to go to work every day and have a positive effect, do a great job at work. They do not, as again, you've often heard me say, they do not get up in the morning wishing to do a poor job. But their lack of expertise can have very serious consequences. And these consequences affect their team, their companies, and certainly their career trajectory. How big's the problem? Let me share a couple shocking statistics. These demand attention. Recent survey by Chartered Management Institute shared some alarming statistics about the state of management leadership in America today. A staggering, and I do not use that word lightly, a staggering 82% of those who became managers have little or no training or qualification, even though 1 in 4 people in the workforce takes on management responsibilities. So 25% are taking on management responsibility. And of that 25%, 82% are receiving no formal training to become qualified to be a manager or a leader. Over half the managers surveyed in the same survey, half of them admitted to having no management or leadership qualifications. Forget about training, no qualifications, admittedly. And this is even a little more startling. 26% of the senior managers in this survey also fell into the same category. It's pretty big. What's causing all this? What is the root cause of the problem? Let's talk about mastering the crucial transition of moving from high contributor to an effective manager. Becoming a manager is more than just a promotion. It's a profound shift in responsibilities and skill sets. While someone may excel in their field or their area of expertise, successfully managing and leading a team demands an entirely different set of abilities. Relying on the assumption that a high-performing employee will automatically become an effective manager, as I've said often before, that is not only flawed, but it is highly detrimental to an organization's well-being. Many companies, and if you're listening to this for one of your first times, you may be one of these companies. Many companies mistakenly believe that leadership and management skills are innate qualities that will naturally emerge once someone is given a managerial title. They just come out. There's natural leaders. This mindset, that attitude contributes significantly to the challenges faced in today's workplaces. Because without proper training and guidance, these new managers are left to navigate the complexity in the most complex world ever. They're left to navigate the complexities of leadership all on their own. Go get them. Get after it. This often, as you may know, results in inefficiencies, decreased team morale, maybe and often employee turnover. It certainly is not good for your ability to achieve goals. And additionally, this lack of a clear career roadmap that includes management and leadership training is a significant oversight in many organizations. Ideally, in a perfect world, and fortunately, I finally joined one of these organizations fairly early in my career. It was a profound effect on me. So I went through a few years of being a dummy, but once I joined the right company, I was in that role. They provided me and everybody else in that organization the leadership training, the management training that we needed. And within those organizations, all potential managers, before they were promoted, went through the same training and had to go through proof of retention and their ability to deliver on that training. They had to live that training. And listen, if that's not possible, it should be an essential part of their development plan during at least the first year as a manager. This approach not only equips them with the necessary skills that they, believe me, they don't have naturally. They may have some natural skills. I'm going to give you a stat in a minute. It's a pretty low number have this natural skill. They don't have all the skills they need naturally. But they need these necessary skills in a roadmap to success. And that establishes the clear expectations and the standards within your organization or for yourself, within your team, for leadership, what good looks like. And furthermore, the common practice, this is a big one, the common practice, I'll just hire an experienced manager. I'll just hire external managers based solely on their experience. Friends, that is riddled with pitfalls. Think about my prior statistic. Experience does not always guarantee effectiveness, rarely guarantees effectiveness. If a manager has progressed through various roles without proper leadership training, listen, they're likely to bring some of those inefficiencies right to your door. Their knowledge gaps will come right into their new position. Now, that company's problem is your problem. And by hiring these individuals with experience, companies, and you've probably done this, it's so common you can't feel special. You're inadvertently importing the problem, which perpetuates the widespread issue of underprepared managers leading teams. And again, if you're one of these accidental managers that's unprepared, you didn't do that to yourself. But there's ways to fix it now that you're becoming aware of it. If you're a company that's been promoting people from within or hiring experienced outside managers without the proper training, well, today's just as good a day as any to start down a different path, because the enjoyment of success, the level of success you'll begin seeing fairly quickly is amazing. I've seen this turn around countless times across almost every industry imaginable. But let me make sure you understand all the signs. Here are some common examples for you to think about that are signs of ineffective accidental managers. Let's start with this one. You base your promotions on technical skills alone. Often, top-performing employees in non-managerial roles are promoted to leadership positions. This is very common, if almost not the absolute norm, based on their technical prowess or domain expertise. However, managerial roles require a different skill set. This is most common in sales. I work a lot with sales team, and I see this more often than I don't. So people management, strategic thinking, decision-making, those are all skill sets that need to be pretty well flushed out, finished, at least in their first year, or you're ever going to see the level of success you can. Most people don't have that naturally. This lack of training, most companies do not have a training plan. They got no plan. They got no training program. And without proper guidance, these accidental managers, they're just left to figure things out on their own, which leads to the mistakes and inefficiencies, the firefighting, the people issues, the turnover, the lack of product. I could go on. All ties right back to lack of their development, lack of training. Now, very often companies feel like they're forced to do this because of their rapid growth. And in fast-growing companies, there's always a pressing need to fill managerial roles quickly. I worked with one of those companies once, and they were smart enough, once they realized they had outstripped their talent base, that they were growing faster than their talent was growing. They were smart enough to have the programs. They were smart enough to recognize that, hey, whoa, things are starting to come apart around here. It's because we've outstripped our talent. We're putting people into roles before they're really ready. Let's stop growing, and probably save the company. But if you're growing too fast, promoting people to fill these roles, you got to have somebody manage that team. And you're not giving it much thought as to their managerial capabilities, their leadership knowledge or ability. You're setting yourself up for a potential hard time. You just made the climb to success that much steeper. Now, some companies have cultural factors. Sometimes there's a belief that anyone can manage. If I just give them the opportunity, they can manage. They'll figure it out. But this completely overlooks the specialized skills and temperament required for effective management. Another issue is a lack of a succession plan. Great companies have succession plans for almost every role in the organization. Does that sound like a lot of work? Let me tell you, it saves you a lot of work. Because I've worked with company after company, highly successful, best in their business companies, that we spent a lot of time, invested a lot of energy and work into succession planning to make sure we had people in the wings that were going through the training so that when the time came, they were ready to step into a role, especially when we were growing quickly. Because you don't want to promote people into a role without evaluating their skill set to perform in that role. And now there's some companies that fear external hiring. I've knocked external hiring. And again, I'm not knocking managers out there. You're doing the best you've been trained to do. I love you all. You keep me in business. But some companies have a fear of hiring people from the outside. I get that. They would prefer to promote from within. I love that. But sometimes they do it at the risk of peril because they will place an unprepared individual into a managerial role when that's not the best decision. Or I've seen this before. There's been a lot of ahas sometime when people stop, business owners in particular, they stop and they realize they've misunderstood the role. Sometimes there's a misconception that management is this natural linear progression in someone's career. It just happens. But both employees and employers might see it as the next logical step. That is not the way it works. They're not considering whether the individual truly has an aptitude or desire for management. I come across this where I finally have to have the conversation with the boss and say, hey, you can't want it more than they do. They didn't really want to be there. You asked them, they felt compelled and loyal enough to take the role, but they weren't cut out for this. That's where your DISC surveys come in that will tell you whether they have the DNA, the aptitude to be an effective leader and manager. And I'm going to get into this one a little bit later in the podcast, but there's a lack of feedback mechanisms. You know, I'm a huge proponent of 30-day reviews. Done the right way, it's a 30-minute review every month. It keeps people informed as to where they stand. They're constantly working on themselves, getting to the next level. And without regular feedback from either you, peers, and get this, subordinates. I'm going to get into some detail about this a little bit later. But without 360 feedback, if you're an accidental manager, you're likely to remain unaware of your shortcomings. And this perpetuates your ineffective management practices. Not by design, not by because you just want to, because you don't know any better. We don't know what we don't know. And 360 feedback, again, we'll talk about it more in a little bit, is the best place to start and to maintain the growth. Now, I'm gonna breeze through some of the, because I think I've made the point pretty clearly about the damaging effects of poor management and having untrained managers in leadership positions. Has a lot of consequences, but I do want to share some stats with you. Gallup, who is, I think, the giant in employee feedback and global analytics, period, but they give a lot of advice too. I've worked with Gallup. I've been a consultant with Gallup. I've been a customer of Gallup for decades. And their statistics, their research is fantastic. None better, in my opinion. But their findings underscore the profound impact that leadership has on employee engagement, how happy somebody's going to be at work, how motivated somebody's going to be at work, how much somebody wants to succeed for you as an employee on your team, their productivity, which all leads to your overall company performance. So here's some big impact statistics you want to listen to. Some of you have heard this one from me before, but according to Gallup, managers account for at least 70% of the variance in employee engagement scores across different teams within a business. The level of leadership and management ability impacts 70% of the motivation, the productivity, etc., within any one organization. And that, to me, underscores the pivotal role managers play in influencing how engaged their teams are, how productive their teams are, how happy their teams are. Because poorly trained leaders have a significant dampening effect on the success of a team or a company. Another stat on managerial talent. Gallup's research indicates that only 1 in 10 people, I said I was going to get to this one, 1 in 10 people possess the natural talent to manage. 1 in 10, 10%. And of course, it's a strong suggestion that the vast majority of managers may need some training, if not a significant amount of training and development, to lead effectively. If you take nothing else away from today as a motivator, 90% of those in management do not have the natural talent to be there. Doesn't mean they don't want to have that talent, but they may not have the DNA. They may not have the behavior profile. We need to disc and find out whether they do or they don't. That might be leading to some of the dysfunction or the poor productivity or the unhappiness. But likely, they probably have not had any training. And you cannot get trained out of reading a book. Let me just clear that up real quick. Reading a book doesn't fix it. Training is much more than that. You can't treat leadership and development training like a car wash. You drive in, you drive out, you're clean, I'm trained, I'm ready to go. It's a lifelong journey. It's long-term. You can get most of it in the first year and get much better, but it continues to build. And you have to have a process within your organization to continue building that. It needs to be part of your culture, part of your company DNA. We're here to develop people, and we're going to have the best leaders and managers possibly can, knowing that 90% of the people are not naturally prepared to fulfill that role. And of course, with all this impact and promotion decisions, Gallup found that companies fail to choose the candidate with the right managerial talent for this managerial position 82% of the time. 8 out of 10 times we've chosen the wrong person, according to 3 million people survey. 8 out of 10, 82%. That's a pretty high percentage, and certainly indicates that many organizations do not have the succession planning, the evaluation process in place to identify and prepare people to be promoted into decision-making roles. They're ill-equipped. Another part of the study from Gallup discovered that only 1 in 10 had the qualities, and then 82% of the time were choosing the wrong person. Wow. Of course, this leads to turnover. Yeah. Gallup's most recent survey shares with us, out of 3 million people surveyed, that 1 in 2 employees have left a job to get away from a manager. People join companies, they leave managers. And if you have people leaving a particular team or leaving you or leaving your company in general, big part of it's because of ineffective leadership. It's a huge impact on your success, on the success of your company. But low turnover is not always good. I just said that, low turnover, that's not always a good sign, because a lot of these ineffective or poorly trained, unprepared managers, they avoid conflict. They're not prepared to have difficult conversations. And so underperforming employees stay around. And when these underperforming employees stick around, it affects everybody. It's like a virus. It brings down morale and productivity. And high-performing members, they get demotivated. I'm sorry, that's the way human nature generally works. And just everybody's engagement, happiness, and motivation decreases. And Gallup's research shows that having low-performing colleagues or employees seriously hurts a team's ability to produce and hit goals. People join companies, leave managers. And good people are going to leave a bad team, which you just lowered your bar. You lowered your ability of success. So it's going to have an economic impact. It's going to have a growth impact. It only costs about 483 to 605 billion, according to Gallup. That's what companies are paying for a lack of leadership. I don't know how much your company's paying. It's paying something if you do not have these programs in place. And this may sound like a huge advertisement for results-driven leadership. I don't care where you get your training from. Don't. Just get the training. It's not from a book. It's not listening to a podcast. You need to have a formal training program with a trainer, a coach, and sustained over a long period of time, more than a year, for people to learn and adopt the best practices, the principles, the habits, be an effective leader. It's huge. Let me just walk through. I just had a discovery session with a prospective new client last week. And I'm just going to share one of the managers we talked about. Looking for help. God bless this company. Very big, successful company. Want to be more successful. They have very much a personal development plan culture within the organization. They're willing to spend the money to help their management team succeed. This particular team leader executive reached out to me to help work on her team. And I'm going to change the name, but here's the story of Jane. This is one of the people she shared with me that she wants us to work with. She was a top employer. This is a tech company. Everybody loved her. She'd been there for years. She'd been loyal, showed up for time, pleasant. Everybody liked her. And she got promoted to manager. But Jane had no prior management experience, no prior management training. So now we're off. And in her new role, Jane struggled with delegation and micromanagement. And she lacks the emotional intelligence to handle conflicts. And this is creating this really tense work environment. but she depends on these few favorites that she has, this dependence on personal relationships. She has one gear and she plays it. And she wants people to like her. And some people do. There's data-driven insights. There's poor decision-making that comes from not using data. She does things from feel. She has very dysfunctional team meetings. She has this habit of conducting team meetings without a clear agenda. And very often her meetings digress into all these unrelated topics, which eats into a lot of productive time. People looking at their watches. When's this ever going to be over? And maybe worse, when anyone tried to steer the discussion back on track, she shot them down. She saw that as a challenge to her authority. She'd get very defensive. So guess what? No more feedback. And Jane went right on with this ineffective approach because she didn't know better. She rarely received any suggestions from her team, no new ideas. So there was very little innovation, very little contribution or collaboration. And her team's attitude is, why? She'll only reject it or criticize it. And believe me, this is stunning Jane's team effectiveness. And creating some really poor relationships because she never listens. I mentioned this earlier, favoritism. She often shows favoritism and assigns these plum projects to her favorite team members while leaving the hard or the crap jobs to people she doesn't really like much. And the team sees this. So why work hard? Her favorites are the only one that's ever going to get any credit around here. My work will never be appreciated. Jane has very inconsistent communication. She has a tendency to share important information with only a select few members of her team. It's very fragmented. So her team is often confused. They're misaligned because she does not understand from a management standpoint how to cascade information properly. So her team, in many cases, just thrown up their hands and they just do whatever they think they need to do or whatever they want to do, or they just look busy, but they don't get very much done because the team doesn't know what's expected of them. And when changes come along, they feel left out, so undervalued. So why should I care about her if she doesn't care about me? Why should I care about her success if she doesn't care about me? In order for them to care, we have to show care. In order for the team to respect, we have to show respect. And it's unintentional, absolutely unintentional, but she inadvertently is showing a high level of disregard, disrespect by this poor approach to communication. And she avoids difficult conversations because when there's issues, there's conflicts, Jane buries her head in the sand. She avoids confronting them. And I think she just believes they need to resolve themselves. They'll just go away. And they don't. You know that. Many of the employee problems, especially, live on and on. And her team's gotten the message. We can get away with anything we want to around here. She won't do anything about it. Imagine that dysfunction. That's just one manager. Talking about 8 on this team. That was her worst one. But this is all the signs of what sometimes ill-informed, misinformed, uninformed, untrained, unprepared leaders, what happens? They don't mean to do it, but they don't know any better. They don't know what they don't know. So let's get off of that and let's start charting a path forward. How do we fix all this? But let me start by making sure we do not underestimate the importance of emotional intelligence that always trumps intelligence or IQ. EQ trumps IQ. You need to be the right DNA, behavior pattern, DISC to be a leader in organizations. Managers also have to understand they don't need to have all the answers. They don't have to have all the answers. They don't need to know everything about everything. Their role is to create an environment where others can thrive and collaborate and find answers themselves. How about that? Let's rely on each other. Decentralized command. And again, while accidental managers may have very good intentions, let's start getting into the training to be contributing at the highest level of impact that's critical for your organization's success, for your own success. We want to make sure we're spotting this micromanagement, this poor communication, this avoidance of conflict, this inability to delegate, this lack of vision and alignment, this reliance on favoritism, inconsistent decision-making, which creates low morale, increased complaints, firefighting, constant problems, lack of innovation, collaboration. Let's start talking about how we transform accidental managers into effective leaders. I think you've gotten the point by this point. It's pretty common. And you're starting to pick up and recognize the signs that we need to do something about our management leadership training. More importantly, I think we need to start, this is my strongest suggestion, is in order to fix a problem, I have to recognize that I have that problem. What are my specific problems? Because your managers don't all have the same problem. They don't all have the same challenge. We need feedback systems. And with the right feedback and know where I stand, what I need to work on, now I can start transforming managers into effective leaders, which drives success. And you can sign them up for communication workshops, time management workshops, courses, but most importantly, they need leadership development training. And again, I don't care whether you use results-driven leadership or not. We're one of hundreds out there. We just happen to be the best because we use former executives, not trained trainers who've learned out of somebody's book. We've all been there and done that, but regardless, find somebody. But we need to admit that we have what problem we have to fix. We have to embrace that we have a problem. This manager or your managers need to embrace that. First of all, I have a problem. And if the boss is the only one giving the manager feedback that has some impact, but a fairly low impact, thus low motivation to do anything about it. So we need to create some self-awareness. And how do you do that? How do we unlock the potential of these effective leaders in the future? 360 feedback. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. It's amazing. In a world of management and leadership, self-awareness is the key. We must be able to hold up the mirror. It's painful. It's not pleasant. I've been there. I've had my own journey around this. I know what it feels like, but let me tell you, it feels so much better once you start getting the change in this feedback. But I had to know where I stood. First, you need to know where you stand, or your managers need to know where they stand. And 360 feedback is a simple concept, been around forever. I've been part of it back in my corporate career. I did it for 20 years or more. It has a profound impact on everybody that participates in it. As long as there is a structure, an architecture, a development, a culture of development within this organization. We're all working on ourselves, and that is completely inexpensive to start. It's just a mindset. But you have to acknowledge the challenge. The first step forward is overcoming any challenge is admitting that it exists. You've heard that before. Sounds like common sense, but it's incredibly difficult because we often as humans want to avoid this, especially if I'm fairly experienced and we're set in our ways. Without direct feedback, it's really easy to assume everything's fine. No news is good news. And my bad habits remain. And our bad habits are difficult to break, but I need a motivator. 360 feedback gives you that motivation. If you're the right person, if you're open to honest feedback and willing to truly understand what your challenges are. Unfortunately, many direct reports or peers, if I just ask them, they're not going to give me the feedback I need. They're just not. They're going to hold it back due to fear of repercussions. So I've got to give them an anonymous method of providing 360 feedback. So 360 feedback in an anonymous format. Because people want to avoid getting in trouble for providing this feedback. And if you can begin this journey of 360 feedback, when it comes in, it provides a platform for this anonymous feedback from direct reports, peers, and the boss. And then honesty will be encouraged. And managers are finally able to receive unfiltered feedback. And I know it did for me several occasions. I was never perfect. I'm still not today. But I work on myself every day. But that can serve as a wake-up call. It was for me, and it has been for many others. I've had lots of conversations around this. But I needed candid, they need candid feedback from multiple sources. That's where it just coming from the boss loses its importance. It's not as impactful. And once I'm getting that feedback, I then need a path for development. I need a process, and it's not, once again, I think it's the fourth time, go reading some book on leadership. That doesn't do it. It supports it, but it doesn't do it. You have to have the roadmap to success. You need to have a training plan. You need to have training and mentorship. Somebody, there are 4 tenets of teaching. Tell them, show them, have them do it, give them feedback. You've got to get that feedback in there and a mentor that will help guide them and give them honest feedback along the way. Tell them what they're doing well, where they're showing improvement. And as long as you're embracing the insights that 360 feedback is giving you, and I've got a program to go do something about it, your managers are going to begin excelling in their roles. The ones that are willing to do the work. Not everybody will be. This isn't a 100%, nothing I ever tell anybody is 100% true. It'll only work on those who are willing to do something about it. The ones that are willing to leverage that feedback and take proactive steps towards improvement. And it's not for the weak. Again, firsthand experience. But start with the 360 feedback system. Start with the 360 feedback system. That's anonymous and gives your managers and yourself this honest, unfiltered feedback. Because some of the things this feedback may reveal, remember, EQ trumps IQ. So it'll show lack of empathy, which is huge in leadership, ineffective communication, Maybe you're unavailable, your unavailability. Maybe there's some bias in your decision making. You can structure these with any questions or any feedback you want to. I'm going to talk about ours in just a second. If you're interested in finding out more about 360 feedback in general or our program specifically, I'd love to talk to you about it. We've simplified the formula because every leader is different, requires a different approach, a unique approach to their development. And I've partnered with the TalAssure organization, who has one of the best 360 survey systems on the market. A lot of them out there, but theirs is as good as you can get. It gets the honest feedback, gives them direction they need to move. And that way they've got something to not only start the journey, but manage that journey, because if you are applying the 360 feedback on a regular basis, they're starting to see from that feedback whether they're making the advances. It's very effortless. It takes just a few minutes. It's all online. It's all anonymous. Very usable. And it spits out reports. And the data on those reports is very understandable. High level of integrity in these reports. And this starts enhancing tomorrow's leaders through the effort. You can create a development plan. You're getting the honest feedback. You can create a development plan. And it fosters, most importantly, self-awareness. Your self-perception. It is hard to hold up a mirror to yourself and understand what you're really good at. And you'll find that out from 360 feedback. You'll find out your strengths. And sometimes your strengths can help lead to improving your shortcomings. But where there's gaps, self-awareness is key. But if I do not have that feedback loop, I'm just guessing. So high quality leadership requires high quality leaders require training and development. And in order for them to get bought in and understand what they need to develop, you need to start with self-awareness. And 360 feedback is the way. And again, there's lots of companies provide 360 feedback. If you're interested, I'd be more than happy to consult with you on what we can do, what we can't do, and help design a program for you. It's very mobile friendly. It's engineered, designed for today's workforce. It's clear, it's easily understood, and we can design it to only ask the questions that are the most impactful to your team's performance and improvement. And you get that improved leadership team, you'll get more engagement, you'll get higher productivity, you'll get boosted morale, you'll get stronger teamwork, you'll get better communication, and increased accountability. So think about it. Start taking the steps to getting to where you would like your team to be, or you personally. Wouldn't hurt to start today. Thanks for listening.